the Star Wars fandom. Now, we've talked about this a lot across the internet. Everyone knows the Star Wars fandom is nothing to be trifled with. Yeah. We can say that. We know what happened to the new Disney trilogy with The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. All sorts of problems, all sorts of not problems turned into problems by the fans whatsoever. That being said, Star Wars fandom, don't come after me. I don't have any problems with you. I'm just saying. I don't want to ever be the subject of their wrath, because their wrath is crazy. But what really blows my mind is the things that they're YouTubers that make full-time incomes and like daily videos just talking about Star Wars. Not just talking about Star Wars, talking about Star Wars news. Like,
well, there's been a lot of it lately.
But is there though? That's what I want to know. I'm like, is Star Wars so expansive that like you can make a living just being like, so this new thing came out with Star Wars lately?
I mean, with what they got in the pipeline now, I guess so.
So I guess let's talk about what they have in the pipeline, because it confuses me every time I try and bring it up. Like, whenever I'm thinking about what they have in the pipeline, I forget about another thing. So like right now, we have our Disney trilogy and they're working on new movies. There's been talk of all sorts of directors or producers coming on board for new movies. Like Kevin Feige's involved. Rian Johnson was supposed to get a whole nother trilogy, but we don't know if that's happening. There's just like all sorts of movie things going on. And you'd think that would be it. But the most interesting news or leaks and the like are actually revolving around the TV shows, because not only do we have The Mandalorian, we also have an Obi-Wan TV show that Ewan McGregor signed on for. I've heard that that's only going to be one season, though.
Yeah, and also it feels like we've been hearing about that forever.
I think people wanted it for years, and they talked about it before they like wished it into fruition. Like they wished it into existence. But that actually is happening as far as we know. But I think it's only going to be one season. But aside from that, there's talk of new animated shows. There's I've heard talk of a Coruscant TV show. I don't know if it would be animated or real, but like an underbelly of Coruscant type of show that was like kind of removed from Star Wars. There's a series that they're working on now with Leslie Headland being the main showrunner or director. I'm not sure a lot about it, but they're talking about doing a series with Brie Larson as the lead, a really female-centric series in which I think that it's going to be set between the prequels and maybe the originals. I'm really not sure, because the thing is, there's so much news all the time, but it's all just leaks. Yep. That's what kills me. It's all just people just speculating about these leaks that they've heard, and a lot of them are true. Some of them aren't always true, but it's like we're not even to the point of having trailers for this stuff.
Yeah. Well, also after the Disney sequel trilogy was completed, like a lot of this stuff got scrapped too.
Yeah.
Like, after Han Solo, we were going to have a Boba Fett movie.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And that got scrapped because Rogue One and Han Solo got, Rogue One a little less so, but Han Solo got mixed reception and didn't really do that well box office wise for a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So they pretty much, they're in a phase of reworking everything about Star Wars. I mean, I've heard that George Lucas is back as a part of the gang. It's supposed to be like Dave Filoni, who was our Clone Wars creator, I believe, main producer, writer on a lot of that. Jon Favreau and George Lucas are really heading this up. The CEO of Disney, I think, has his eye on everything. I think they're transitioning CEOs right now. I can't remember his name. I think it's like Bob Chapek.
Wasn't it Bob Iger?
It was Bob Iger was what it was, but I think he's phasing out.
Okay.
And so that's the thing. They're like, they've got these new people coming in, and basically they kind of realize how Star Wars has fallen apart as a fandom. It's not just that like it's falling apart, like it's not making any money anymore. I'm sure it's making plenty of money, but they realize just how mad they've made the fans.
Yeah.
And that has led to, I think especially George Lucas, I would love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings. And I just want to know what's going through George Lucas's head now that he's back and involved. And he's like, yeah, you guys couldn't do this without me.
Yeah. Yeah. And Star Wars is having that thing that keeps happening where once they move on to a new trilogy and it's not as good, people look back on the old one and they're like, well, the prequels weren't as bad as we thought they were.
Oh, well, come on.
Because they did that with the Spider-Man movies, too. Like Amazing Spider-Man came out and people were like, the old Spider-Man movies weren't good.
Fair,
and then Homecoming comes out and people are like, well, actually, they aren't that bad.
People were more keen on the prequels around the time when the new trilogy was coming out.
But after the new trilogy,
it's gotten even better.
It's accelerated. Yeah, for sure.
But, so like with these new TV shows, what's weird is just like how much news there is and how much they're planning to change and talking about. I mean, a lot of people pin the blame for the middling success or the bad reception of the last trilogy on Kathleen Kennedy, which, while I don't want to go in and just bash Kathleen Kennedy, I will say that it makes a lot of sense based on what we know that she had a large hand in the destruction of that series. I mean, I don't think that The Rise of Skywalker was ever going to be a great movie. That being said, the stories that are, pretty much confirmed stuff, like she deleted so much of what was shot. There were scenes that just sounded cool or were good ideas, and she just came in and was like, we're not using those scenes. And it seemed like she had a lot of control in that area. And I would take that as rumor, but the fact that supposedly she has been relegated to only one project at a time at Disney, within Star Wars at least, that it makes me think that she's on like some kind of probation, or someone is trying to push her out. And I can't say that I'm mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the destruction of the new trilogy was due to fan backlash because, I can't blame it entirely on the fans, but that last one was a checklist of how many things can we fix, and fix is a nice way to put it. Yeah, that people were mad about. It was like, it felt like they were just going down the list like, fix that, fix that, fix that, fix it. Like it wasn't a movie.
Yeah.
At all.
And yeah, it didn't even make sense though, because there were so many reshoots involved and so much to it. It was like just this Frankenstein movie. But so, and I don't want to dwell, there's a million reviews and deconstructions of that series. I don't want to dwell too much on it, because like all the other content they've got going on is so much more interesting, because I feel like that's what George Lucas and Favreau and Feige want to do, is that they're kind of just at a point where they're like, we want to move on. Yeah. Like, but on the other side, I've heard talk of there being a 4-hour Rise of Skywalker cut that they want to release on Disney Plus, because so much footage was shot for that movie that they didn't put into the movie that Kathleen Kennedy deleted. And it's supposed to be an Abrams / Lucas cut. Like George Lucas is working on it. And like entire new plot lines and scenes. Like that's crazy.
How likely is that rumor to be false though?
I really don't know.
I find it hard to believe that George Lucas would have any interest in working on the sequel trilogy after the things that he's expressed about it.
You really can't tell.
I kind of feel like if he's coming back to Star Wars, he's going to be like, all right, let's move on. Let me do what I want to work on, or, let me consult on something new.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that he's going to go back to the sequel trilogy because it's so far away from what he would want for Star Wars anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. But what's interesting is that there's a lot of talk about what actually is supposed to be in the movie and how it originally was supposed to be. Like there's talk of like in the end, in the fight with Palpatine and Rey, when Rey hears Force ghosts talking to her, it was originally supposed to be Ben that was hearing those Force ghosts, and you're supposed to see them. And they were supposed to help him battle Palpatine and things like that. Like there's supposed to be a lightsaber duel with that. There's talk of scenes where Ben Solo was supposed to, I'm not even sure he was supposed to die. He was supposed to help Rey build her own lightsaber. It was going to be yellow and double bladed things. I've heard so much that I can't even keep it straight. But that's the Rise of Skywalker talk. And that's not even what's in the pipeline. I mean, we've got there's talk of a animated series that they want to do that's set after the Rise of Skywalker, and like the rumors on that are just crazy. They're talking about Rey. Like they've said that maybe it'll be like an animation, more realistic animation style about Rey kind of forming this like a new Jedi temple on Tatooine or something. There's just a lot of people have said that doesn't really make sense. Tatooine is not a great place for a temple, whatever, but they're trying to keep it with Skywalkers. There's talk of using the Force power of the wills. I don't want to get too nerdy on this. I know like everyone's like, what are the wills? But the power of the wills is kind of a big deal in some of the old Star Wars legends stories. I think they even brought it into Clone Wars at some points. And there's talk about like reviving Luke Skywalker with like a specific force power that where he can't stay forever, but like bringing him back in essence to like battle Palpatine again or something, or to be, like to give him his proper send off. And it seems like with a lot of these new series that they've got going on, what they really are trying to do is make Star Wars right again, not just from like the Rise of Skywalker checklist of things that they were fixing, but like kind of going back and there's talk. I mean, I've heard talk about the Last Jedi cut that was 3 hours long that adds in scenes about Luke's death that make it better or justify it or make it different. Like they're talking about doing all these things with books and TVs and shows that basically justify some of the things that happened in this last trilogy. That being said, I don't know that they can justify much, but I think they're at least just trying to make it right with fans a little bit. And I don't know that it makes it right with fans. I don't know that people are going to be totally happy. I do think that what they can do with all this is get people to be like, okay, you've apologized. Mm-hmm. You actually, what I do think about this, I'm not that excited about new Star Wars stuff. But what I do think is mostly because they lost me. But what I think is that they have people that care about Star Wars and understand the essence of Star Wars in the driver's seat now.
Yeah. Well, I think if they're going to fix Star Wars, if they're going to make it a property that people really want to see again, they're going to have to move away from the new trilogy. There are people that like the new trilogy, but the majority of people were, at the very least, disappointed by it. And I don't think going back to it is going to do anything for them. Like if they went, oh, let's go back and let's bring back Luke. Let's bring back this. Let's fix that. Let's do the things that like fans think that we should have done the first time. I don't think that's going to fix anything. I think their best bet is to move forward with something. Like, look at the way The Mandalorian did it. The Mandalorian kind of, I mean, we knew it was coming out, but it kind of came out of nowhere and people were surprised by how solid it was. And it was a totally different thing. They didn't go, we're going to use The Mandalorian to retcon everything that happened in the last few movies. They just did something completely different, and it's been their most successful spin-off.
And I think they're really going to lean into that. But in that being said, with all these retcons and explanations of past failures, I have heard of things like Lucas wanting to do an Old Republic show. I don't know if that would be live action or animated, but it seems that Lucas actually is very aware of the Star Wars Legends, what used to be the extended universe stories. I think he's very aware of that. I've heard of all these series, possibly including a lot of nods to characters from them or characters straight out of it or arcs from that. So I do think that they have Star Wars fans' best interest in mind now. And I think that's all I can say for it. I mean, going on to The Mandalorian, like you said, The Mandalorian is the first thing that's really captured Star Wars since, I'd say, The Force Awakens. Because The Force Awakens wasn't a great movie, but it really did have the Star Wars essence to it that was really nostalgic, and it really brought fans in. Mandalorian had a lot of that. So if they're going to lean into that, I think that's a good step forward.